Hi everyone, we've got another workshop for you, and this time we're exploring effects in After Effects. After Effects ships with like hundreds maybe of inbuilt effects that you can use to create all sorts of different animation and graphics. We're going to explore maybe 5 or 6 in this tutorial, and then as part of the workshop we're going to get you to all research an effect independently and come up with a very simple outcome. This is what we are going to be creating, this animation up here, and this is based on some artwork that I've completed recently that started off as something static. It was a screen printed outcome, and I thought it might be, the shapes might be good as animated content, so I've sort of extended that project into an animated outcome. And I've primarily used After Effects effects to generate the movement in this piece. Anyway, let's look at how we might put something like this together. We're over here in After Effects, and to start, the first thing that we'll make is that kind of subtle animated grid that was in the bottom right hand corner of that piece. And to do that, I'm going to create a new composition. And my composition is going to be at these values: 500 by 600, 300 frames per 30 frames per second, and a length of 4 seconds long. And I'm going to call this one grid, because that's the effect that we're going to use. I'm going to click OK. So here's our composition window. We need something in here to apply an effect to, so we're going to use a particular new layer that's called solid. It's basically a set of coloured pixels. I'm going to use this colour here, but it doesn't really matter what colour you pick, because once you apply the effect, the solid becomes transparent, and I'll show you that. I'm going to click OK. So coloured layer here. All our effects we'll find under the Effects tab here and other places, but let's pick our first one from the Effects menu, and I'm going to go down to, I think it's Generate, and then scroll further down to Grid. And you'll see it instantly applies a grid and our colour becomes transparent. You'll also notice that our project bin toggled over to our effects controls for that particular layer, and this is our yellow layer, which I'm going to hit return on the keyboard, return on the keyboard, and call this grid layer. The parameters, each effect is going to have a series of different parameters, and for the grid we've got an anchor point, size, corner, height and width that's grayed out. We can add a border, we can feather our grid, change its colour and its opacity and its blending mode. So heaps of possibilities there, and you can see that all of these values here have that little stopwatch icon, which means that we can animate that property and keyframe that property. So for example, if I twirl down my properties here in the layer, you will now see that we have access to these effects parameters, and the grid parameters are here. So if I wanted to change the size from width and height sliders, I could keyframe the width and the height sliders over time, like so, and they would change over time, which is cool. I'm also going to keyframe the height like so. So that's excellent. We can quickly and easily get animation going. It's not exactly what I had in mind. I was going to make the height and width sliders increments of the composition window size, so 50/50 goes into 500 and 600, so that makes kind of a square grid. And then I was going to I suppose, quite slowly move the anchor point from one point to another point. So I'm just going to add an increment of 50 to each of these values here. 300, make that 300, and I'm going to make that 350, and that means it's going to kind of pan across one square zone and down, or up one square zone as well, down, like so. And it will do that indefinitely, which is great. That's exactly what I wanted. So we've created the animation with the grid effect. Now I'm going to combine that with some other elements that I have created in After Effects. So I'm going to import some artwork that I've made, this file called shapes.ai, as a composition, retaining the layer sizes, and click OK. And this is the composition where we're going to do all of our finished animation. So I might call it finished animation. And I hit the return key on the keyboard to make that editable. Finished animation. Oops. I'll just pull that out a little bit so we can read it. Great. So I'm going to open that up. And what I'm going to do is hide all these layers here, because we'll get to those in subsequent videos, and drag that grid composition into our finished animation composition. So we've nested one composition inside another, and you can see that composition icon is different from the Illustrator assets. And now when I play that, one animation is playing inside of another animation, which is great. And we call that process pre-comping. I'm just going to move that down there. Just kind of position somewhere down there. It is kind of subtle, but it's a good foundation for my animation. So we're going to work on a few more effects in subsequent videos, and I'll catch you there shortly.